like midget, like
All right, what's going on, BC Lions and CFL fans? Welcome to Season 8, Episode 14 of the BC Lions Den podcast. I'm your host, Brian Wawrish, and alongside my co-host, Cole McGarvey and Bryce Coots. It's touchdown Kelowna Week 1 for the BC Lions, who will face the Calgary Stampeders this Saturday in the first of 2 games at the Apple Bowl in the Okanagan City. Both teams looking for their first win this year after dropping their first 2, albeit in much different fashions. Stampeders have lost a couple close ones, while the Lions have struggled to keep opponents out of the end zone and have a rash of injuries they're dealing with. One of these 2 teams will enter the win column this week, while the other will continue to try and get there. To help us set that up, we'll be joined by the always optimistic and entertaining Ryan Ballantine, who covers the Stampeders for 3 Down Nation. We'll also have our thoughts with our 3 keys to the game, assess the Lions' possible lineup. We'll also welcome your comments, go through our weekly picks and CFL power rankings for Week 4. As always, we encourage you to participate and comment during the show. The best place to do that is YouTube or Facebook, where we would love your free subscription, like, or follow to help us grow the show. For all of you watching us on X, which is a lot of you, we'd love for you to help out the show and watch us live on YouTube. Let's get to Cole and Bryce now. Gentlemen, how are we feeling as the Lions and Stampeders are on their way to Kelowna?
I'm doing well, Brian. Thanks for having us in as always. As bad as things have looked through 2 weeks, I am excited to hit the road on Friday, get up to Kelowna, and take in our first game of the year in person. Hopefully the Lions give us something to entertain us for 2 weeks. As you mentioned, Brian, just week 1 of 2 stints up there, but doing well. Excited to chat with you fellas tonight.
Yeah, gentlemen, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for touchdown Kelowna. It's going to be, I think, just overall the festivities and everything the Lions do have planned for the city of Kelowna and for the fans up there, I think are going to be great. Hopefully, for you guys being up there for game 1, the Lions can correct the ship as it, is currently still heading towards that iceberg. But hopefully they can get it corrected. Hopefully we see some guys that are on this injury report potentially play. But yeah, overall, guys, excited to talk about tonight's matchup and look forward to what this 2 weeks are going to be like for the Lions up there.
Saw TJ Lee was added to that injury report today.
Yeah, I'm not acknowledging the additions.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Kelowna. We leave on Friday. We're going to head up there for the full 9 days and spend some time up there and do some touristy kind of stuff in between. Lions have a lot going on. There's a concert on the Friday night. There's a breakfast the day after the game, which is going to roll into Team Canada's game. So I'm assuming the pubs are going to be pretty packed in Kelowna around noon on Sunday. So we'll have to try and get to one early to see if we can get a seat somewhere. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And of course, in Kelowna, it never rains, right? But you look at the forecast and it's going to rain on game day. So that's just perfect. Kind of an ominous sign for the Lions season so far. Rainy and stormy so far. Lots of things to talk about tonight. The injuries are one of them. 2 teams coming in 0-2. What do you think the Lions? We'll get into it a bit more in depth later. But what do you think the Lions have to do this week to kind of to get off the schneid, so to speak?
I think they gotta play loose, guys. They gotta relax, and I think that's one of the biggest things we may have seen. You've got a bunch of young guys, especially on defense, even on offense now, right? We our receiving core essentially is not what we walked into training camp with, assuming we're going to be our starting five at this point. I think the one thing a lot of these guys that are being thrust into these opportunities, they've got to play loose. You can't be afraid to make mistakes because you're gonna make them. They're gonna happen. You just got to be able to correct and rally from them rather than letting them spiral into more and more because you start pressing as a player. I don't know, Cole, you got anything other than that you'd add to that?
Yeah, pretty similar. I would say, as I sent to you guys with our 3 keys, like I think they need to feed off the energy. I know it will be a smaller crowd up there, but seeing as it is the first time that BC Lions fans are going to see them in person, as you mentioned, Bryce, though, you can't let it get too big. You can't be too hyped up for the thing. You got to utilize that to your benefit. And I think there will be some Calgary fans just due to how close they are in attendance. But I think you got to feed off that energy, start fast, feel good about yourself, and hopefully the positivity will keep rolling from the start all the way to the finish of the game.
I got the Brian Burnham on tonight, so we're gonna send some good receiver mojo to the boys. They're all those are next man up. We need some good Brian Burnham mojo. It's not really time to panic. I think we mentioned this on the post game show last week. Speaking of which, we got the wrong graphic up, but we'll just go with that. It says post game show instead of water cooler, but we'll go with that. Last week we talked about being 0-2, but it's not the end of the world. I mean, the Lions still can win every season series against every Western team if they can figure this out and get past this week. There's no season series being lost against any of these first few games. They play all these teams again. They play the Riders twice at home. They play the Stamps again. They play Edmonton twice coming up. So they haven't played Winnipeg yet. So there's still opportunities to right the ship here, but they got to get healthy. I think that's the main thing. And, if they can do that, then, hopefully we'll start to see some better football. Jackson Finley, and we're going to play this clip a little bit later when we get into our game preview, but he was asked by JC, what he thought about his defensive coordinator getting a lot of heat, and he was pretty defensive of Mike Benavides. So that's to be expected. I mean, you're not going to sit there and trash your coach, but everybody inside that locker room is pulling on the same rope, you would hope. And so I think, they're optimistic. They're trying to figure things out, but obviously getting healthy would be a big step forward. Let's just bring in Ryan now. He's been sitting in the studio. We're a little bit early, but let's get him in here and get going with our featured guest of the week, Mr. Ryan Ballantine. Gonna get the boys up here. Sorry, I had to redo all this because I accidentally closed the browser window like 2 minutes before the show and lost everything. I had to redo it all. Ryan, good to see you, my friend. I haven't had a chance to chat with you in a while. How's things in Calgary?
Things are good here, but I just want to say it's so refreshing to have you back on the airwaves, Brian. It's been way too long in this hiatus that you went through, and it's good that the podcast has been relaunched in its new format. I'm excited to be here. And, outside of the record, I think things are great here. That's, I think we've got a Grey Cup coming up, and that's just all good times.
Speaking of podcasts, what happened to the Horseman podcast? Is it gone now, or is it coming back? Is it in a hiatus? Or
never say never. Never say never. But as you know, as the podfather of it all, it takes a lot of work to do these shows. With life being what it was for a while, I just don't have, I think, necessarily the time to commit to it. And so for the time being, I'm just enjoying my status in the community as a podcaster emeritus who wanders the land guesting on other shows and not having to do any of the editing or worrying about closing my browser 2 minutes before the show starts. I just get to show up and talk Stampeder football.
Hey, you know what? That's the good thing about doing this show live is there's no editing. It's just like whatever goes
good.
on.
It's the extra stuff after. But yeah, it's a lot of work. And it's not easy to do. And I think people don't really know how much work it takes behind the scenes to make sure these shows run as smoothly as they do.
For sure. Are you headed to Kelowna at all this weekend?
I'm not headed out to Kelowna. My Vancouver trip this year is going to be in August, so it just doesn't time up with the Stamps game, unfortunately. But that's when it worked out for the rest of the family. So I'll be relying on the coverage from TSN and the good folks that make their way out there from the media. I know JC will be there covering it for 3 Down, which is great. But yeah, just unable to make it myself.
Stampeders and Lions are, of course, both winless to start the year. So your prediction has gone from 18-0 to 16-2, I suppose. That's where the similarities end, because I think when you look at these two teams, they've lost these games in quite different fashion. The Lions defense is just porous right now. The Stampeders have been in their games and have basically lost them right at the end of each game they've been in. But they do have some issues. The Stampeders, their offense seems to go dormant for stretches in games, which I think is costing them. What's your assessment of this team to date and the reasons for their 0-2 start?
Yeah, I don't think it's inaccurate to say that their offense has been rough the first 2 games, despite the amount of points they put up. I mean, they're well into the 30s both games, but it just doesn't feel like it feels like they've got a quarter, maybe 18 to 20 minutes every game where they're just not able to do anything. That was the first half of that game last week against Saskatchewan. And then in the second half, all of a sudden they came to life, buoyed by that Tyreek McAllister missed field goal return touchdown. So it really kind of was a game of 2 halves last week. We'll see if that momentum can carry over into this week. Like you said, the BC defense can't catch a cold right now. And so, I think it might be a good day for Vernon Adams to go into Kelowna and kind of, exercise that demon a little bit in beating Nathan Rourke and the BC Lions. And if your defense doesn't show up to play this week, the number of weapons that Calgary has, especially when you're talking about their Canadian receiving core, and then you've got Dedrick Mills, there's a lot of offensive weapons there, and if BC isn't careful, this one could get away from them early.
Go ahead, Bryce.
Oh, I was just going to say, Ryan, obviously great to meet you in person. Love your writing over there on 3 Down Nation. It's fantastic work. I got a question for you, kind of around the offense. Obviously, Dave Dickinson gave up play calling this year. He's handed those duties away. Have you noticed a difference in the first 2 weeks of the season to how this offense functions from when Dave ran it to now who you guys have in place calling the plays?
I think it's still very similar. I mean, it's still a run-heavy offense, right? It's predicated on the run, so you get Mills going early, and that forces the linebackers in. It forces the defensive backs in a little shallower. Then you get beaten with the deep ball. That's kind of been this kind of rope-a-dope feel to this Calgary offense for the last couple seasons. I don't think that that's changed much here in the early going. I think what has changed from a success standpoint is something that Calgary went through last year that you guys are going through now, which is there's no receivers. When you look at the last couple seasons in Calgary, or especially last year with Vernon being here in Calgary, it really was a case that he never from week to week to week had a consistent receiver core. And when you don't have that, you can't build the chemistry you need to be successful in the CFL. And then the offense looks like it sputters. This year so far, knocking on all the woods, you've got Clark Barnes, who was forced into the lineup last week, maybe ahead of schedule from his injury return, but he should be back and ready to go this week. And between Barnes and Jones and Phil Pott and all of these guys, there's a real look there into what this receiving core might be capable of, and they can beat you at any time.
So what would be the reasoning for the offense drying up during games? I mean, VA had 20 yards passing after the first half last week. That's not typical VA numbers. Like, what's happening with that offense that's causing that disconnect?
If you've got the answer, I'm sure the Stampeders would likely even pay you for it. I can't say I know exactly what happens, but when you look around the CFL, I don't think that that's unusual of any team. You could look at what Saskatchewan did in the first half last week, and then say, well, but they got nothing in the second half. They scored one touchdown, but they barely moved the ball in the second half against the Calgary defense. So why were they so successful in the first half and so unsuccessful in the second half? You know, you look at Montreal, Edmonton, all of these teams that have built big leads, and then all of a sudden they're scrambling or going to overtime because all of a sudden it's just not working for them. Something just clicks, and there are days where it's one extra pass being caught, one bit of momentum that really buoys the team. You know, I think, like I said earlier, McAllister running that touchdown back at the end of the first half kind of gave this team the belief that they were in it and the belief that they could do it. And then all of a sudden they came out in the second half and did that. They were able to get to Trevor Harris, which they couldn't do in the first half defensively. They stopped the passes. They tightened up the zone coverage. It was a real loose zone in the first half, and they tightened that coverage up. And I don't know if Saskatchewan made changes on their defense. I would have been surprised, given that Calgary only had 50 total yards in the first half. But Calgary ended that game with over 300 yards. So they had a very effective second half. And I can't tell you what changed between the offense and the defense for both teams at halftime. But I think when you look around the league, you see that in almost every game. You know, the Lions offense with Nathan Rourke being Nathan Rourke should be able to be better than he is, even though he's on his complete second set of receivers now. You'd think you'd get better offense there, but sometimes it's just not happening and it's just not clicking.
Cool.
Yeah, Ryan, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. In a home Grey Cup year, I'm curious where the temperature kind of is within the fan base right now. I think, speaking for out west, I think as Brian kind of tried to dumb down a little bit of the panic, there feels like a little bit of sense of panic out west. As I mentioned, home Grey Cup year, 0-2 start. You guys feel much different than us, as Brian alluded to, with the closer games. Where is the temperature, do you think, within the fan base right now?
It's not as bad as you might expect with an 0-2 start. I'm not seeing calls yet to have Dave fired, which was happening even when they were well over 500 last year. I think people are waiting for this team to figure it out. There is a recognition that this team is not yet complete, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You've got you had Jalen Hutchings signed just before camp started. Well, he and Flo didn't play the first game, and then Flo still didn't play the second game. So now, when you look at this team, the idea is that they're going to build throughout the course of the year. It's not about being 0-2. It's about not being 0-5, 0-6. I think if you come out of the first 6 games 3-3, I think you're in a pretty good spot if you're the Stampeders to make the playoffs. I know it's not 8 teams yet. It's still only 6. But nevertheless, I think if Calgary is kind of building towards the next set of games in the season, I think they're going to be in good shape.
I just want to tail off on that last question because I had this question near the end of the show, but since we're talking about fans in Calgary, Calgary is always one of my favorite cities to go to. The tailgating, the atmosphere around the stadium is fantastic. I've been there many times, as you know, Ryan. But what's been the reason for the tail off in attendance in Calgary? Because you really haven't had that bad of a football team. And there seems to be, Edmonton, I understand. You go 2 seasons without winning a game at home. That's going to hurt your attendance. What's been the biggest reason in Calgary for that drop off?
There's a lot of interesting things happened in Calgary that kind of conflagrated all. That's not a word, but you get the point. That kind of all piled on top of one another. The COVID season killed a lot of people's enthusiasm. I'm not going to say that the vaccine mandate the next season did not have an impact. It was the right decision. It's the way it should have been done. But nevertheless, Alberta having the reputation it does, I'm going to say that there may have been multiple people who decided that they were done giving these woke Stampeders their money and, doing their own COVID vaccine research and all that other nonsense that I think caused people to leave. At the same time, because nobody in the world was moving, the price of oil cratered. And when the price of oil craters, there's no money in Calgary to do things extra. And so that became something else that they wouldn't have done. And so all of those things combined to have a season ticket holder base of 25,000 drop down to almost 12 or 13 over the course of 2 or 3 seasons. Now they've built that back up, and they say that, in talking to Jay McNeil before the year, they said that they had their highest season ticket renewal rate in the last 15 years last season. So the people who are there are staying. It's about attracting the new crowd and bringing people back.
Fair enough.
Ryan, I got a question for you about Dave Dickinson here, because I think it's a really interesting topic that you kind of brought up about, how last year you guys were well over 500 and they were still calling for his job. Part one of this is, what's with the volatility with Dave there? He seems to be quite the lightning rod now as a kind of, hey, we need to move on, but he's been quite a successful coach for the organization since he took over, took him to a Grey Cup and so on. And depending on how this season goes, is he on a hot seat potentially? And is there maybe the opportunity that Calgary, even if they say even get close to a Grey Cup or a West semifinal again, could they move off Dave Dickinson if they don't end up winning the Grey Cup for, say, this year?
Well, if they don't win the Grey Cup this year, it will be the if they don't win a playoff game this year, it will be the 8th consecutive year without a playoff win. That's not something I know that's not something that I think the franchise wants to do. At the same time, the contract details around Dave Dickinson are not known to the public. They are not published, and I don't know whether or not CSEC wants to pay somebody not to coach, and so. And not to be the GM. I don't think they're interested in having those salaries in the coaching cap. You do get one freebie, and Calgary just doesn't fire coaches. So it wouldn't cost them against the operations cap, but I don't think they're interested in paying somebody to sit at home. So I don't know if Dave's on the hot seat organizationally, because I can't say what CSEC's mindset is, but I can say that there's got to be internal pressure to get a playoff victory if not at home, there's got to be some sort of playoff victory happening, or what could possibly happen? Can you keep a coach who is in the 8th season of not winning a playoff game? Ultimately, that's the goal. And I don't know that there's a better coach out there, but Ryan Dinwiddie left Calgary. He won a Grey Cup. Corey Mace left Calgary. He won a Grey Cup. Mark Killam left Calgary. He's undefeated this season. There have been a lot of assistant coaches under Dave Dickinson who've used his tutelage to go out and become great coaches. Is there somebody else waiting in the wings here? I don't know that that's the case, but you never know where it's going to go. I think at the end of this season is going to be very interesting, with Calgary trying to go all in on winning the Grey Cup.
I mean, we saw Huffnagel move upstairs and hand over the reins to Dickinson. Is there anybody
and then to Toronto? I mean, Huff's gone.
Yeah, but do you see anybody on the current roster that situation might repeat itself, where Dickinson just concentrates on being the GM and promotes from within?
I would have said that any of the last 6 years, but not anymore. I don't know. I don't know that they have the hot shot up and coming coach inside the ranks that they used to have. All of those guys are already coaching somewhere else.
Fair enough.
Yeah, Ryan, I was curious your thoughts on young Jackson Somback that's came into the starting lineup for the Calgary Stampeders this year. The common thing is to see young Canadian safeties with the ratio and all that sort of stuff. And for people that maybe aren't aware of Jackson, and 5'9", maybe 5'10" on a good day, University of Regina product that kind of has been developing with Calgary. I believe drafted in 24, went back to school, and then won a job this summer. What have you seen from him through 2 weeks?
He's made some tackles, but you wonder. I'd be curious to see what somebody else might also do in that spot. Nothing against Sombak. I think there might be some juggling to do if you get into a ratio position where you can do that. But it's not like he's been a glaring problem either. It's not like you're looking at something and going, oh, this guy again. He hasn't been a glaring problem. But at the same time, I don't think he's been, you look at some of the other safeties around the league and what they're able to do. And I don't know that Sombak is doing that yet. Although, again, he's relatively new into this starting role. So we'll see how he continues to develop. I mean, we still, we're going to joke a lot less that the season begins after Labor Day when that's becoming the 13th and 14th game of the year. But I think we're still waiting to see what Sombak's able to do.
Given the state of the Lions defense, which has been pretty good against the run, but horrible against the pass, how do you see the Stampeders? Do you expect the Stampeders to test that secondary right away and go bombs away to start the game?
Yeah, here's the thing. This spread this weekend or do you talk gambling on this show? Is that okay?
Sure. Go ahead.
Just double checking. The spread this weekend is Lions minus 2.5.
Really?
And I think that's offensive. I think that's the idea that a team with no receivers and no defense is somehow a 2.5-point favorite over a team that's lost in overtime twice. This is not. I think it's crazy to me that the Lions might be favored in this game because I do think Calgary is going to eat them alive. I think Vernon is going to come out and do exactly what he needs to do, and he's got some very talented receivers to throw the ball to. And I think they're just going to chew up the Lions this weekend from a passing standpoint. And I mean, part of that passing standpoint is because outside of Betts, I don't know that you have a dominant defensive line. Matthew is what he is. He's one of the best players in the league, but you throw two offensive linemen on him and he's not going to get through very often. So I think it's going to be a pretty heavy pass protect or a heavy pass pro, heavy pass package this weekend. And then that's where once you fall into that and you start dropping linebackers back, then Dedrick Mills is going to eat you alive through the middle.
Ryan, obviously you cover the Stamps, but you also look at the whole CFL through your role at 3 Down Nation as well. When you saw the hype going to the Lions this year and you saw, hey, they're the Grey Cup darling, as Cole likes to say, and we all kind of assumed they were, and you saw the roster and the minimal changes, I guess, they made. Obviously, they brought in Kesey Sales and Darnell Sankey. Did you think the Lions got at all better when the initial were looking at it? From your perspective, did the Lions take a step back and people just maybe weren't paying attention to it with the talent on this team?
I think people gave Nathan Rourke credit for what he is, which is the best player in the league. Nathan Rourke is the best player in the league. I don't take anything away from him. And all of your receivers are injured. So is it like, and I guess Keon might be back this week. I'm not sure. But really your big name receivers are all hurt. And you added Darnell Sankey, who's one of the best linebackers in the league. So why wouldn't you think the Lions would be good? I had them at number 1 in my preseason poll, in my preseason power rankings. I had the Lions at number 1. They were fantastic last year. I think they got unlucky to not get to the Grey Cup, but Saskatchewan was also a good team, not taking anything away from them. But I think it was just as likely that you guys would be in the Grey Cup game. And so now you look at it and you're like, well, maybe 1 year older was 1 year too many for this team. And maybe they had the lightning in a bottle last year and they have yet to recapture it this season. And the injuries certainly aren't helping.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going to be the same receiving core as last week. And look, Nick Senecal proved himself last week that he can play in this league. If Keon Hatcher comes back, Poissant still got a chance to play. McKinnis still has a chance to play. So, I mean, hopefully they'll get some of those guys back and it won't be as lean as it was last week. But yeah, I mean, I've picked the Stamps to win this week. Whether it's going to be a bloodbath or not, I don't really no, we'll have to see what the defense can, if the defense can turn things around. But, they haven't shown it so far. If they don't get pressure on the Stamps, it's going to be a long day, just like it was a long day in Hamilton last week. Clarence Hicks is off
a much less mobile quarterback.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, yes, you didn't get on Bo Mitchell, but Bo is not moving like Vernon moves. So if you do,
he didn't have to.
Vernon rolls out of the pocket and takes off, right?
Yeah, Clarence Hicks is off to a great start this year. Stamps have 3 sacks over 2 games, and he has all of them. Are you happy with the pressure the Stamps are getting up front on defense?
It's only going to get better.
Well, yeah.
I think they were much better in the second half than they were in the first half last week. And adding Flo to that mix is going to make things even better.
Is he playing this week? Or?
Now it's pick your poison. So he's practiced in full every week leading up to every game. It said that he's full and he's available. So Dave has said until he's ready to play 50 or 60 games or 50 or 60 plays a week, he's not ready to let him back into the lineup. And, he said he missed all of training camp. He came back right before training camp ended. And so he wanted to see him have 4 or 5 weeks at least of practice before he came in. Now, are we getting to 4 weeks since he started practicing? We are. So we'll see whether or not he can get in and get on the lineup this week. But once he's there, Oramolade on one side, Hicks on the other, and Hutchings in the middle. Good luck.
Was he not 6-gamed, Flo?
No, Flo wasn't 6-gamed.
Okay, I was wondering how he was practicing. He was on the 6.
Yeah, no, Bagleton got 6-gamed. Flo hasn't been.
Okay. What can you tell us about the latest injuries? Adrian Green's been out. You just talked about Flo. Have you heard anything on those guys other than Flo? Is Adrian Green going to go this week? A big part of your secondary?
They're not sure yet. Dickinson's training camp report injury report from yesterday said that he was dealing with a bit of a leg issue, so they're not sure whether or not he's going to be ready to go. If he's not ready to go, of course, that creates a problem from a ratio perspective. So they'd have to figure that out. That's where your Sombeck at safety definitely comes into play. But I think from an injury standpoint, they seem reasonably healthy. Taking a look just because we're talking about it, I'm going to bring up the injury report from today and see. But I think from what I understand, it looks like nothing's. Chiquette was back as a full practice. Adrian Green didn't practice. He's listed as a knee, and I can't imagine he'll be ready to go if he's not practicing today. But Jalen Philpott was back in practice. Christian Canu was back practicing after not being there on Tuesday. Oramolade was again a full participant. So we could see more of these guys making their way back into the lineup and getting into the team that the Stampeders thought they'd be at the beginning of the season.
Chat, we do see your questions. A lot of them are Lions related, so we're going to save those till a bit later. But keep the questions coming, and we'll go through in our Q&A period. If you have any questions for Ryan about the Stamps, certainly put those in the chat. We'll get them up on the screen for you. What newcomers are on the Stamps roster this year that BC fans might want to watch out for? Is there somebody that's kind of caught your eye as a newcomer that fans of other teams may not be as familiar with?
I think the biggest newcomer to the team is McAllister, but it's not like he's new to anybody in the CFL. He's just new to Calgary. We haven't seen him out west as much as he started his career in the East Division. So he's kind of been the biggest addition to this team. I haven't really seen, it's not been a lot of rookie impact yet. Markel Lee only started playing this, he played the last couple games of last season before playing now as a full-time starter. He's making a difference in that linebacking core. But there wasn't really a lot of overhaul or change to this Stampeders roster from last year to this year. When you look at their starters, they didn't really change much from a rookie perspective in something that's making you go, oh, wow, that's our absolute rookie of the year candidate. I don't know that we have anybody running away with that in the first couple of weeks.
Guys, you got anything else for Ryan? Or
No, I think it was pretty good.
No, I'm good.
okay, Ryan. Hey, man, it's been fun. Always great to chat with you. Thanks for doing this. We look forward to chatting with you again down the road here in the season. Should be a fun time in Kelowna this week, and hopefully we can defy the odds and beat the Stampeders in Kelowna.
Well, you just have to match the odds. 2.5-point favorites. Joke. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for having me. Cole, Bryce, nice to meet you both. And so glad that there's a Lions podcast kicking around again in the CFL pod sphere. And when you guys, Brian, I know for sure you're coming out for Grey Cup. So at the bare minimum, we will see you out for Grey Cup time. And Bryce and Cole, if you're coming out too, we will see you there. It's going to be fantastic. If you're at all on the fence about coming to the Grey Cup in Calgary, I will remind you that the reason the Grey Cup is a party is because of the Calgary Stampeders. We started the Grey Cup party. We are the best at the Grey Cup party. And I insist that you come on out to Calgary. Turns out we have all the hotel rooms you need to host a Grey Cup. The worst part will be trying to piss during the game. And outside of that, it'll be fantastic. And you'll have a great time guaranteed. So if you're on the fence at all, start putting those dollars away and make sure you get out here in November.
All right, we'll definitely see you there. Won't be making a trip out to Calgary this year because Kelowna is freaking expensive, and that's using up all the road trip money this year. So we will see you at Grey Cup, though. That's already paid for and ready to go. So always good to chat with you, Ryan. Take care, and we'll see you down the road.
Thanks, Ryan.
Pleasure as always. See you soon.
Thanks, Ryan.
Bye.
All right, now we got Ryan on the screen.
Oh, you dumped the wrong beard.
All right. See you, Ryan. All right. Now we got the right screen up too. Okay. Well, that was Ryan Ballantine of 3 Down Nation. Covers the Stampeders. Always fun to talk to. He's a very dedicated Stamps fan. I can tell you that. Yeah, let's get into our game preview now. And we'll throw up some stats here for the game. And I got to add these guys again because, I crashed the show right before it started. So, all right, let's get into it. Obviously, guys, this is a huge game for the Lions. When you're looking at the stats, I mean, it's really not that different when you maybe in the rushing game a little bit. You look at the receiving yards, Justin McInnes, he probably won't play this week. Jalen Philpott leads the Stamps with that. Nathan Rourke, his QB rating is down a little bit, but that's to be expected with, some of the issues that they're dealing with on offense. Points per game, not really that different. Points allowed, not really that different. Lions have more total yards allowed per game, passing yards allowed per game as well. No surprise there with what we've seen so far. Focus, got to stop the run and generate some pressure up front to help out that secondary. Your guys' thoughts early on here?
Yeah, I was curious, actually, now that it comes to mind. You mentioned about having to stop the run. I don't believe we asked Ryan about Dietrich Mills in the rushing attack. That'll be, I think, when you see that, Vernon Adams in the passing attack only averaging about 240 yards per game. If they're going to be able to run the football and stay on the field, that's ultimate worst case scenario for us because our weapon X is on the sideline, number 1. They're controlling the football, number 2, and our worst unit is on the field. So I think that'll be a huge test for our defense. And as Bryce mentioned about some of these new guys that we haven't been able to see make an impact in these games, most notably Sankey and Casey Sales. This is a huge spotlight on them they need to step up in this occasion because if you're able to make them a little bit more one-dimensional, I think it's going to help out your back end a little bit more and hopefully lead to good things on Saturday.
Bryce?
Yeah, like for me, guys, when I look at this, I think there's a couple things that, really kind of stand out to me. And obviously it is the, total rushing yards by Dietrich Mills. And this is where I think the Lions defense has to show something this week in the passing game, especially like the run game. We've seen the run defense. They've been able to hold up. Sankey's been good in that department. But if I'm Calgary, I am literally writing up almost a similar script to what Hamilton did. But you know what the bonus is? I've got a quarterback that can move. So can you imagine now Vernon Adams getting out to the edge and having even more time to throw if he wants to on some of these design boots and run plays? that are RPOs. And this is where I think for BC, they have to get, Cole brought it up, in our group chat, they have to get some takeaways. You gotta somehow build some momentum, a quick 3 and out, whatever it is, to get this defense some confidence. Because if you don't, and Vernon Adams is allowed to take shots down the field, and our backers start bailing out because they've got to get to, spot drops, all of a sudden you're going to see draws coming in with Dedrick Mills, and he's going to be running clear as day through the middle of this defense. And again, on the flip side of it, right now we're kind of a one-dimensional offense in some rights, right? It's about Nathan Rourke. And so you look at passing yards per game, we're at 350, right? That's kind of the average right now for where we're at. Our running game, James Butler has a total of about 97 yards rushing through 2 games. He hasn't cracked 100 yards yet for the season. How do you expect a quarterback? And to lean into that even a little bit more, we have a receiving core that's completely depleted. Our numbers should almost be in a reverse. In most teams, they'd be like, hey, we're losing most of our receivers. Let's try and establish a bit more of a running game. And the biggest thing, guys, I got to say with that running attack is use Nathan's legs right now. Like, get him into this running a game. Let him keep some of those RPOs and take off with them. That might open up some holes for Butler, as well as pull some of that coverage up, because they're like, hey, we got to take on Nathan as a runner. And then it should open up some holes in behind for these guys, receivers, to get open.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see a few things at the start of this game. One, I would love to see the Lions win the coin toss, take the ball, and go down and score. Just to give that defense a little bit of support, right? Because what's happened in the first 2 games is the Lions have got down so early and the defense is just scrambling. So let's go take the ball, run it down their throat, get into the red zone and actually finish a drive for once, and get the lead. Because I think, that's something that's been chasing, this team has been chasing for the first 2 games. And it was a problem all last year as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned I said it to you guys, one of my keys, the offensive execution has to be there this week. You have to finish. If you get around the goal line, there's no, hey, it's a win that Sean White is coming out on the field to kick 3 points. Absolutely, it's nice to know that it's automatic, but there is no, that basically, it not cost us the game. But as I said last week, not to say that the Lions were going to win. It's a completely different football game if Nathan Rourke's able to hit James Butler first and it's 14-10, and then hit Kieran Person and it's 21-17. He doesn't hit those, and instead it's a 2-score game the entire time. Hamilton doesn't even feel threatened. So they need to be on their game. And, as we've talked about with the backup receivers and missing 5 receivers, unfortunately that excuse kind of dies at this point because the urgency is so high to win. And there's no more like feeling sorry for them that, hey, we don't have our receivers. You got to go out there and just get it done with who's available.
And let's get James Butler more involved in the passing game. You don't have to go deep every play. You don't have to go 30 yards downfield every game, especially, with the receivers that we have in the game. They're not our starters. Let's get James Butler involved in the game. Bring in that 2-back set. Get Horvath to block and release Butler out into the flats and stuff like that. Like, we need to get him involved, because so far he's not running the ball that well or effectively. And we need help in the receiving game. So I agree. Get Rourke moving around, get Butler involved in the passing game, and try and get some early success that way.
And here's the other thing. If you get the run game going with Butler and Horvath, or even with Nathan and his legs, it allows you to establish some play action, which slows down that pass rush, which gives these younger receivers opportunities to, hey, we can get into easier sit areas in the zones for Nathan to get us the ball, because they have to actually, as a defense, respect the run. Right now, teams don't respect the run, so they pin their ears back on Nathan. Nathan gets stuck in the pocket, and this is where, again, I look to Buck and I go, okay, you've got to move the pocket too. You can slide it. Get Nathan out on that edge a little bit, so D-lines aren't just saying, hey, we know where he's roughly going to be. Let's pin our ears back and just go at him.
Yeah, we heard so much about this 2-back set and how the Lions were going to, utilize 2 running backs. Well, we haven't seen that yet. So let's see some of that. Let's see some hurry up. Let's get, the Lions up to the line quickly and see if we can get the Stampeders on their heels a little bit. I mean, the Stampeders defense has not been that great either, guys. I mean, it's not, they've been giving up, 32 points a game. Or is that offensive points per game or defense? Oh, defensive 35 points allowed per game, only, 1 less than us. So like, their defense is having their issues too. So if we can make some plays early and get them on their heels a little bit, maybe get into a little bit of a rhythm, but more importantly, taking some pressure off the defense. Like, we need to extend some drives, chew up some clock, keep their offense off the field, and help out our defense a little bit.
Yeah, it's really well said, Brian, of taking the pressure off the defense. I really feel like, to Bryce's point, Buck hasn't really called a game to that manner of kind of understanding what's on the other side of the football. You talk about it with the field goals last week and being basically afraid to go for it in that end of the field. And with, I'd be curious to know what you feel, Bryce, because, you look at the interior of the offensive line, and it's a Brandon Yates at left guard, new interior offensive lineman, Mike Couture, and then Chris Slugger. Chris Slugger more prominently kind of as a tackle swing kind of guy that can play both positions. But to maybe JB's credit a little bit, there hasn't been much push up front as well. And I think that kind of hurts them to a point, because it feels like you look at a Calgary and they got maulers up front, right? Especially when you look at the interior, right? With guys that are willing to run block and willing to stick their head in the defensive lineman's chest and get that push for their running back. How much do you think maybe kind of that plays into things of, like, the finesse ball that's been kind of thrown around with the BC Lions?
I think it's really true, because when I've gone back and I've watched a lot of the Lions' offensive run game per se, it's very much inside zone. And the problem is, to your point, inside zone is very much predicated on how your centers and guards work at creating that initial push, and then your play side tackle really getting to that edge and trying to, get it outside, where your backside tackle is now got to climb and try and cut off that will. And you really end up, in these situations where you're reading the backside end. The problem is, the way the Lions have run it recently is you see Butler come a lot more downhill into it rather than kind of on that 45. And one thing I'd like to see with the Lions is run some gap pull, run some GT counter in there, pull Schlugger and Allen back and make it look like you're running zone right and come countering underneath. And if that's with Butler, with Nathan, with Horvath, whoever it is, but the more you can give a defensive line in some respects in that front seven more to think about in the run game of, like, hey, these linemen are moving. It's not always just zone. This is where then you can go from that, and you can now run your screens, because the lineman pulling, you can run a fake counter and have Schlugger and Allen come over and get out to the left side to set up a screen to Butler. And this is again where I haven't seen very much creativity from the Lions offense. It's been very stale. And I get, again, they're missing receivers. But that doesn't mean all of a sudden your playbook has to lose some creativity out of it, because these guys have all been through camp. They've all been there at the start. They should be able to at least be a little bit more creative in what they do. And a big part of that starts in the run game. The Lions, to win this football game, have to get some sort of actual identity in running the football.
For sure. I want to play this clip by Jackson Finley, the BCLions.com had up, and hear what he has to say about the defensive play so far.
Where do things are at right now with this defensive unit?
I think we're building. It's early in the season, right? But through plays in training camp, we've been making a lot of plays, and I think it's a matter of time till we start clicking on the field. Obviously, the first two games were bumpy on our side there, but I'm confident a guy's going to step up. It takes a couple plays and just start rolling there. So,
where do you think you need to be better, though?
Definitely on the back end side. We've had too many deep shots, too many receivers making plays on us, and that just comes down to being confident in our scheme and our abilities as a unit there. But yeah, it's just a full defensive effort here, and we all need to be better, and I think we will.
There's been a lot of negativity online from fans, from media, directed at your defensive coordinator, Mike Benavides. As a player in that unit, what's it like when you hear that sort of negativity or you see it?
Yeah, I think it's hard, for a fan to take into account how big of an impact he makes on us and, what he does for us, because he's a great defense coordinator, and I trust what he does, and he trusts in our abilities. And, by the end of last year, I think we were the best, if not one of the best defenses in the league. And, that's going to show up, once we start clicking, we start playing more as a unit there. We have a lot of new faces, a lot of old guys coming through. So, yeah, I think it's just a matter of time until we start clicking on that side.
There's been a microscope placed on the secondary, obviously early, but secondary can't perform if there's not pressure on the quarterback. How big of a component is that right now that there hasn't been very much pressure in the quarterback's face?
Yeah, I mean, there's been, on all aspects of our defense, just we haven't played to our standards. So, whether that be our rush or our defensive backs, everyone's got to make play, everyone's got to contribute, and I'm confident that we will. We got the guys on the front seven definitely, and definitely have the guys in the back end. So I'm super excited to see where the rest of the season goes.
What kind of football game are you expecting on Saturday with 2 0-2 teams? Obviously, two very hungry teams. So, is it a little bit heightened because of where things are at?
Yeah, absolutely. I think both teams are going to view this as a must-win. I certainly view this as a must-win, and a lot of my teammates do. So we're going to come out with some fire this game, and leave it all on the field. And especially our first game back in BC, I think we're all super excited for that. So have some families out there, have some friends. So really excited to perform back in our home province.
All right, that was Jackson Finley talking about the defense and the performance. Of course, we have JC coming in and asking about Mike Benavides. You're putting a player in that position. He's not gonna sit there and trash his coach. But what did you guys think about his tone? What did you think about what he said? I mean, he took responsibility. He didn't mention the back end. He didn't mention the front seven. About the problems that the secondaries had. He's not selling out his teammates. It sounds like everybody's still kind of in the same mind space that they need to figure this out within the locker room.
It came across to me, and Jackson, again, he's a great professional that way, especially for a young guy. He handled that really well, I thought, with some of the questions that were thrown at him. I think what you're hearing is a guy that they still believe in what they're being coached to do. I think his biggest thing is execution. This is where I come back to, and I've been thinking about it for the past few days, and I know there's a lot of that, hey, fire Benavides, fire Benavides. I get that, and I understand the frustration of the fan base. The thing for me that I look at with this is I go, where I get frustrated most, Brian and Cole with it, is I look at talent acquisition. And one thing too with this is everyone wants to go, and we talked about Ryan Rigmaiden and what that looks like. But Mike Benavides also has to sign off on these guys working in his scheme. And that's a big component I don't think that's talked about enough is, were these guys that Mike signed off on, or were these guys Mike was told make something work with these guys? And I think that's where this kind of conversation leads to a little bit, because this could be a situation where Rigmaiden and them went, hey, here, this is the best we can give you. Take the chicken shit and make chicken salad. Like, that's kind of, sometimes coaches are put in that situation. So I think that's one thing we got to look at. If this doesn't get better and it keeps getting worse or staying the same, I think Benavides will be the inevitable change that does happen, because you cannot come out of Kelowna with the same looking defense and go, yeah, we're okay, guys, we're okay, because the players themselves will start to question it. And you run the risk of losing players' confidence for an entire season in some respects if you don't get it corrected.
Yeah, I think for me personally, as critical as I am of Benavides, I think for me the biggest thing this year is just the message behind it, of expectations, as Brian said, like everybody picking you to go to the Grey Cup this year. It's time for the Lions to get over the hump. That message needs to be sent early rather than late, before you let the season get out of hand. And then there's no crawling back to, playoff spot, whatever it may be. Because as we said, the goal isn't to host the West semifinal anymore. We've seen that story play out before and it not work out, especially for what we're talking about, right? Our finesse style of play on offense, our lack of defense on the road, in the weather, in the elements. That's not a recipe for success for BC. And we can't let it get to 0-4, 0-5, 0-6. Because at that point, you're playing catch up to not only Sask and the big dogs up there, Edmonton's rolling. Winnipeg has shown signs. As we've said, it's so shitty to say. Literally everybody but us and Ottawa, well, even Ottawa to an extent, has shown signs. So it's for me, as critical as I am of Mike over the last few years, to me, the bigger side of things this year is just the message of hey, this shit is not acceptable anymore. And we have to figure out, because as we said, there's necessarily no help coming. So what's the other solution is hey, send a message. We have the guys in place to take over. Hope it helps. Obviously, the grass is not always green on the other side, but Bryce, I'm curious of what point you came to your mind.
Well, one thing I'll say, like, you talk about Ottawa there. What did Ottawa do this week? Hey, we're going to make a statement. We're trading Drew Brown away. We're bringing in McLeod Bethel-Thompson. Like, they did something. Yes, I get we released Tiema. I get that, right? We got him. That to me wasn't a big enough, hey, I'm tired of this shit, we're changing something kind of move. And that's where I look at this and I go, the guy on the screen right there, Buck has to take ownership. He has to. He's the head coach. Everything that is going on the field, ultimately, he has the final sign-off on. It goes, yep. He looks at Mike Benavides' game plan and goes, yeah, you know what? This is what we're going with. I trust you, Mike. Well, guess what? If it's not going to work, and, that's the one thing that I think that's kind of interesting about this, guys, and I think one thing we got to find out about Buck is Buck's an offensive-minded guy. When you have that as a head coach and you have a experienced DC, Buck should be able to sit in meetings with Mike and go, this is how I'm going to beat you. This is how I'm going to beat you. This is how I'm going to beat you. And if Dave Dickinson's sitting over there or Jason Moss or any of these other coaches, they're going to see this too. So we need to clean this shit up. Like if I was Buck going into the team meetings this week after that Hamilton game, I would have ripped a strip off my defensive staff going, they didn't even have to scheme to beat us. We were that bad. What are we doing to change?
It should have been said at halftime.
But guys, like, I agree there needs to be some accountability. Okay, but and chat, I'm just gonna say this once. On this show, we try and respect people. So if you're calling people dumbest guy in the league and that kind of stuff, your message isn't going on the screen. I'm sorry. We try and be respectful on the show. We critique, but please have some respect because these are human beings that we're dealing with, not only coaches but players. And at all times, we try and be respectful here. Okay. I agree with the accountability thing, but how much of this, we're not in the film room. Like, we don't see the mistakes that guys are making. Did the guy make a wrong turn? Did the guy let his man go thinking somebody else was going to pick him up? Is there enough communication on the defense? Like, these are things that the average fan doesn't see until you get into the film room, until you look at all the mistakes that have happened. It's just not Mike Benavides, guys, and he's not going to get fired if the Lions lose this game. So let's just get that off the table right now. He's not going to get fired if the Lions lose this game, period. But how much of this is player mistakes rather than scheme? I mean, Brian, it's not all coaching.
I think you make a great point, and it's the unfortunate side that we have to kind of be on the other side. But to Bryce's point, right, like of the Sione Chama move, nobody even moves a muscle or blinks an eye. When you hear Jackson talk about his defensive coordinator and talks about, before you even mention anything, like he cares about us as men, right, and stuff like that, that's something that's like, holy fuck, like you feel like I let him down in a way. Like it was kind of my responsibility for him getting fired. Like I need to do better. So that's why, like, as shitty as it is, I do agree with you. I think the like it's majority of like a lot of on-field mistakes compared to, hey, these are what we can do as in terms of adjustments that are Mike. I'm sure, like, it's not that it's not happening. They're professionals, right? Like Mike's definitely doing his job out there. They're going through the process in the film room, all of that stuff. I'm not questioning that whatsoever. It's just the fact of like, it's not resulting to changes on the field. So at some point, like if the Sione Chamas and the whoever it is next, the Levi Bells get released, and that doesn't like flip the switch for the team, it's like, well, what can we do now? Riggs isn't going anywhere. Riggs is still, I feel like, pretty safe in my mind.
Well, he's safe till the end of the year, I would think. I mean, if this year keeps going the way it's going, I don't think anybody's safe. But with the Tuiema release, we heard Buck asked about that in another interview from practice this week, and he was saying like they have some guys that they like, and we knew coming in Tuiema was kind of on the bubble. I mean, he didn't have a great year last year. We were told that he was healthy this year, and they were looking forward to him contributing more this year. I think it was one of the reasons why they let Covington go. But at the same time, we've also heard a lot about David Gusta, which I didn't see a lot of in the preseason. Maybe he's going to get a shot this week. I'm not sure who they're going to replace Sione with, but there's different things going on, right, guys? And like, it's all interacted. You don't get pressure, the secondary looks bad. You can't cover, this secondary looks bad. Like, you need to get some pressure on the quarterback to help your secondary out. That's just the way football works. Like, if Vernon Adams has all day like Bo Levi Mitchell did, we're toast. And that's just the fact. It doesn't matter what schemes you're calling, what plays you're calling. They've got it. Every player out there has to do their 1/12th, right? It's not just the secondary. It's not just the defensive line. It's the whole defense is one. And, right now they're just not playing as a unit and not getting the results as a unit or helping each other out.
Here's a question for you guys. If Gary Peters was healthy tomorrow, who does he take out of that starting secondary?
Probably Russell, I'm guessing.
Russell.
You think Russell? I'd go the other way. I'd go.
Russell's playing his spot right now, so you'd have to move Russell over to the other side.
I think you moved Russell, and I would take. Is it Colden? Colden out.
Colden.
Yeah.
I mean, either one of those guys would,
but that's the thing. But again, so the second part of that is, if Gary Peters enters the lineup, does he make that big of a difference too?
Not if he's not healthy.
I don't. Yeah, I don't have the.
But
confidence.
that's to your point right there, Cole. The confidence, right? You don't know what it's going to be, and this is where, Brian, you've been saying it for the last 2 weeks. There's nobody coming. There's no acquisition. There's no nothing. Like, the fact that they were able to cut, when their pass rush was struggling, cut a guy that was supposed to
be in rotation.
Be in rotation and be a guy that brings some pressure. Like, is Burke going to get an opportunity now? Is that one of the guys that comes up and gets an opportunity? Like, this is where they need somebody to come in, because, like Ryan even said, yeah, Matthew Betts is one of the best players in the league until you throw two guys in front of him and say, hey, we're going to block you up with everybody else.
See, that's the perfect example right there. Everybody's saying, well, Matthew Betts, highest paid defensive player in the league. What's he doing? He's not doing anything. Well, if you watch the film, you'll probably see Matthew Betts getting doubled and tripled a lot, because nobody else is doing anything on that defensive line. It's not just Matthew Betts' fault. They need somebody else to take some pressure off him and give teams a reason not to double him all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's well said, and as well, not a whole lot, but there's a lot of, or I shouldn't say a lot of times, but a few times during game that there's going to be 3-man pass rush on obvious pass downs, right? Second and longs, that sort of stuff, and you for sure have enough bodies to be able to double team Betts that way. I think it's unfortunate that we have to look at kind of, releasing another guy that I believe a few years ago came off back-to-back seasons with like 6.5, 7 sacks. So a contributor, as Bryce said, like a guy that was supposed to play in rotation. The thing that did come to mind of, hopefully, like, if we can, it's not going to probably come to life 2 years in a row, but we did get additions like a Levi Bell, Bradley and I, post Labor Day last year. So I think this is the time where Ryan Rigbain has to be a busy man right now. Like, you have to be trying to look under every rock, every crevice to be finding anybody that can come in here and provide any upgrades or at least get to the same floor. Because if, things don't work after next game too, and like these Gustas and other guys are getting reps, you have to continue to at least try to throw things at the wall and to fix things, because that's where you're going to have to be the most successful first before you can get back to the secondary, is getting a pressure up front and trying to at least slow down opposing quarterbacks. And Vernon Adams this week scares me opposed to the extending plays, man. Like, as much as I think, Calgary's receivers are one thing, I think his ability that, once the pass rush does get home, to escape that is one to the Lions have to make sure that if they get hands on them, they have to bring them down this week.
Bombadil is asking, would you trade anyone? Well, trades rarely happen in the Canadian Football League for some reason. Like, you just don't see a lot of trades, and I don't know what position group.
Nobody's played good enough either.
Yeah, I don't know what position group we're deep enough in to trade anybody at the moment. You would probably have to trade a draft pick or something like that to get somebody of any value coming in here. Yeah, I mean, guys, it's going to be tough. Let's get to our 3 keys. Got to get pressure up front. We've talked about it, and also contain the run. If Mills gets going, and we have to concentrate on Mills, it's going to be bombs away from VA. Mills is, in my opinion, well, him and Rankin are probably 1-2. in the league as far as rushers go. So the Lions have done a good job against the run this year. They're only allowing 3.6 yards per carry so far, but Dedrick Mills is another level of running back. So if they can get a balanced offense, it could be a long night for the Lions defense. Back to basics on defense. Let's just keep everything in front of us, keep everything simple, and make some damn plays. Every 112 do their job, and hopefully we'll see some better results. But if it's too complicated for some of these new guys, if they're not really in the playbook like they should be, or understanding the playbook like they should be, if there's mistakes being made on film, let's clean that up. Let's get back to basics, keep it simple, and try and make some plays out there. Number 3 is sorry, go ahead. Cool.
I just think that one's the most important one, is getting back to the basics, right? The first 2 weeks, we couldn't keep anything in front of us, and that was a massive, massive disadvantage to us. If we can keep everything in front of us, make a few plays, Calgary's going to make their plays. We said it earlier, right? So you have to get back to the basics and keep everything simple and keep everything in front of us.
The third is get off to a quick start. I mean, the last 2 games, Lions have gotten behind early, been chasing. Defense has been rattled. The offense goes 2 and out, takes a while to get going, and the next thing you know, it's the game's out of reach. So got to get off to a quick start. It would be great to win the coin toss, take the ball, go down and score a touchdown, and put them in behind the 8 ball for a change, and then maybe your defense gets a 2 out, you go down and get another touchdown. Like, let's flip the script here and try and get off to a better start. I think it's critical. And I think, the Lions are going to have a little bit more talent, I think, in their receiving core this week. They got Hergy Mayala back. Fitzgerald had a great training camp. He's a big, tall, lanky receiver. He may be able to make some plays. Senecal had a good week last week, and hopefully Keon Hatcher's back. So there will be some more talent in the lineup, more than there was last week anyway. So the Lions got to take advantage and get off to a quick start. Anything else to add on that, guys?
I saw, I saw correctly, Hatch DMP 2 days in a row?
No, he was limited 2 days in a row.
No. Passant, McInnes are DMPs.
Sorry, that's who I meant. So I would imagine McInnes at that point is pretty much a no-go.
Yeah. Well, being a Saturday game, I would give it one more day, but I don't think he's going to play. To me, it looked like a high ankle sprain the way he was. Like, I didn't see the ankle roll or anything. So on that play,
he also
crashed
into the board.
Yeah. So
it was the guy dropping on him. So when he got out, if you watch his leg closest to the sideline, it folds like a high ankle sprain. And this is why I think you saw Fitz and Hergy Mayala both signed, is because I think BC is expecting Passant and McInnes to miss some time. Because if it's a high ankle, and this is the unfortunate thing with high ankles,
brutal,
especially for a receiver.
For a receiver, and I know like some people are like, oh, hopefully it's only an ankle sprain and a high ankle are 2 totally different beasts to deal with. Mm-hmm. High ankles can be a 6-gamer. Potentially. That's the scary thing with them, right? And so I think that's why you saw Hergy brought back and Fitzgerald brought back, because who knows when we get Cote back, who knows when we get Barry Hill back. Like, Hatch may be the legitimate only receiver we have for the next 3 weeks that's like from the starting training camp, number 1 offense, that is healthy enough to play. And it's still scary with him in a soft tissue like a hamstring.
Absolutely. Bob, feel bad for Passant. He was having a solid season, a breakout kind of season, I think, for him. And hopefully, I don't think he's going to be gone too long, to be honest.
No, it said hip, right? Which is
said hip. Then they
back hip thing or something.
Yeah. I think it's more of a nerve kind of impingement, which could take a while to sort itself out. But I don't think it's going to be like a 6-gamer kind of thing. I think you just need some physical therapy to get that nerve worked out. If I recall, he took a shot to the back there, back in the hip area that looked a little nasty, but he's probably just sore, and I think they'll take their time with that, but I don't think it's going to be a major injury. I think he'll be back sooner than later.
Beats an ACL
for sure.
And this is the one thing too, guys, I'll just say this before we go on, is a guy like a Passant who might be on that fringe, and this is what Cole talked about and I've talked about with this, is being in Kelowna. They're not going back after this game to Surrey. They're staying in Kelowna. So a lot of your treatment facilities and things you use are not going to be the same ones that you've had in the past. So treating these, trying to get maybe a Passant back for game 2 in Kelowna is going to be a little bit more challenging for the Lions.
Yeah. And who knows? Like, there's the intangible of being in Kelowna, right? It is going to be a pro Lions crowd. I mean, I expect there'll be some Stamps fans there that are making the trip, but who knows? They don't really even show up to McMahon these days that in big numbers. So hopefully, I'm just speaking the truth, right? I mean, they had 20,000 there last week, and probably half of them were Rider fans. So, it's how many make the trip to Kelowna, we'll see. But it is going to be a home game for the Lions. They'll get out of these Pacific Frost uniforms, which I am going to go on the record right now and saying I don't like them. I'm done with them. You can't read the numbers on them. Watching the game on TV is brutal. I don't know how these things get approved. They look great in person, but like I just don't understand.
What is it this year with the league? Like everybody, like Ottawa's the only one that seems to have figured out that, hey, our numbers should be visible for
numbers need to be dark.
Yeah, numbers need to be dark. Like, I like the pants. I like the silver helmet. Like, that's the era I grew up in. But give me an orange number with a silver outline, and the jerseys would have been perfect. I would have had no issue. But now you look at what Saskatchewan's doing in their, I think they're called the Prairie Blizzard uniform, and it's like you put white numbers on a white jersey, and you put a green outline. Like, really, that was your go-to moment of, hey, who cares about the announcers and the guys calling the game? Let's just go with that. Like, and Cole, you call games. You would imagine how difficult that would be.
Well, luckily, I am a color guy opposed to the play-by-play guy, so it's not as bad. I get to just steal from Noah. That being said, as somebody that is a big fan of the fog jerseys that are no more, let's just roll those back out, boys. I can break out the jersey out of the closet. It can it can be reworn again. So I'm kind of tend to lean towards Brian a little bit. Like, especially when I see the fan jersey and I see the black writing, that really bothers me when I've seen that. I've seen that a few times now out. Actually, I've seen one over here, which is crazy in Nanaimo. So shout out to the Lions fans that are supporting. Not trying to tell you guys not to, but
yeah, if you like it, buy it. I'm not buying one, but like I just don't like the jersey. Period.
It's
and I didn't like the fogs when they first came out, and you hear all the jokes from other fans. Oh, it looks like dirty dishwater on your jersey. But like, you know what? With the black pants and the black helmets and those numbers with the orange trim around them, they're sharp looking jerseys. They really started to grow on me at the end of last year, and I nearly bought one, but now they're gone. So at least with the Riders jersey, they're only wearing those for one game. They don't have to. And then that's probably what the Lions should have done. I don't know why they turf the fog grays. Maybe they got sick of hearing about the dirty dishwasher thing. I don't know. But anyway, it is what it is, and we've got those jerseys for the next little while anyway. Maybe they'll tweak them for next year. But it is a home game for the Lions, so hopefully we'll see the black jerseys. I'm sure we will. They were wearing the black helmets, unless they're going to throw the black helmets on with the white jerseys, which I don't think they would. I would hope not.
Please no.
So we'll see the black jerseys this week, and maybe that'll be the thing that turns things around. And, playing in front of a largely pro Lions crowd. It's going to be great in Kelowna. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere. Hopefully the Lions can provide some entertainment for all the people coming out there, because I think it's going to be a great event both weekends.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. I'm actually really excited to get up to the Apple Bowl, having played in the Apple Bowl a few times. I think it's one of the nicer venues, and especially grass, Bryce. I mean, the fact that you don't get to play on grass anymore and everywhere is a turf is super cool for these guys.
I haven't seen the actual finished stadium. Have they got a video out that shows that yet? Like with the yard markers and everything on the field yet? Or
I've just seen the photos that they've uploaded. I haven't seen anything else.
It looks very from what I've seen of like some of the videos, or like kind of snippets, I guess you call them videos, but snippets are it gives me very much the Touchdown Pacific vibes a bit, with like the way that they've constructed the actual other stands around the solid structure that's there at the Apple Bowl. The only thing I wonder is like the locker rooms there. There's no way they're putting the players in those freaking locker rooms at the Apple Bowl underneath ground. Like there's no AC that gets in there. There is nothing. Like hopefully they just put trailers, like portable trailers off to each side, and that's what the players use. Because I still don't even know how the Okanagan Sun are allowed to use that. That is like going into a World War II bunker down there, Cole, and just hoping for the best.
The Sun have a much nicer locker room upstairs. Actually, the away locker room, which I'm very familiar with, is an absolute dungeon, as you mentioned. And the Sun love to also keep you in the away locker room, stomp down their stairs as they take the field and try to intimidate you. But I do believe it'll be probably similar setup to Touchdown Pacific, how they had, Brian, I don't know if you remember, like the trailers set up on the backside of the stadium, and they kind of made their entrance through almost the crowd there in the end zone. I would think that'll be somewhat similar because, as you said, Bryce, there's absolutely no flipping way that they could fit a professional team down there. You couldn't even fit the offensive side of the ball in there, I don't think. So I would think and hope that they're going to do that.
I think it's going to be trailers like they had at Empire Field. They'll probably have trailers with air conditioning in them and stuff like that. And I think the CFLPA is kind of probably dictating some of that as well, that there has to be certain minimum conditions met for these offsite games. Okay. Well, let's get to our power rankings now, and I'll just give me a sec because I'll have to add you guys to the screen again, I'm sure. Okay. As we said, we're not homers on this show. The Lions are pretty much where I think they should be, except for Cole. He's a total homer.
Wait till we win this weekend, boys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could have made a case for dropping the Lions to 9. Actually, the Ottawa defense had 4 picks last year, but I think just overall the Lions are a better team, and even with the injuries they've had, it was very debated on whether we put the Lions 8 or 9, but we're maybe a little bit of a homer. We didn't want to see our team right at the bottom quite yet, but if they lose this week, folks, in the similar fashion, they're dropping to 9. But Saskatchewan retains their top position. Ticats move up to number 2 with their win over BC, which is, not saying a lot, but they got to bye this week. Montreal lost in Edmonton, so they drop. Argos move up. Elks move up. Stampeders drop, Winnipeg drops, and BC drops. Any comments on this, guys?
I personally, I look at the Ottawa situation. I think if Ottawa has a competent quarterback playing, they might be 1-1. For me with this for at least this week, I don't know if there was a worse team last week than the BC Lions. Honestly, looking at it, throughout the league, watching all the games, I didn't feel Ottawa played nearly as badly as we did. And if you look at the score of the Lions game, it really wasn't that score at the end that we saw. It was some garbage time drives. Chase Bryce got, a good drive in there, which was nice to see. But at that point, Hamilton's sitting there going, okay, we're just not trying to get injured and just get out of this game and get into our bye week. And that's where, for me, I would have been fine putting the Lions at 9, but I also can see the reason to, keep Ottawa down, buried at the bottom as well. But I agree. If the Lions lose again in a similar fashion, they are going to 9. And it's going to be, the interesting part. But I will say this, Edmonton is looking like a good football team, or should I call them the Edmonton Rankins, basically, because without Rankins, yes. I don't know if they're necessarily as successful, but man, that guy, he's playing some good football.
That's kind of where I'm at with the Elks. Because they did nothing for a big chunk of that game, and then Rankin got loose. Once he gets loose, they seem to get their life back in them. And they were a referee's decision away from losing that game as well in overtime. They just happened to get the call, because I don't think either way that call was made, it was getting reversed. Edmonton got the call, Montreal didn't. So, hey, credit to them. They're 2-0. We see them in a couple weeks, so hopefully we'll be looking to go to 2-2 when we play them in Kelowna. But we'll see with the Elks. I'm not quite sold yet, but Rankin is a difference maker. There's no question about it. That guy is putting up some crazy stats this year and is the clear leader for MOP as far as I'm concerned. Sorry, Bo Levi, if I didn't get it right, but Justin Rankin is my early candidate for MOP this year.
Yeah, Edmonton, or I should say specifically with Rankin in the run game, I think it's funny to see an offensive coordinator like Jordan Maximic go to Edmonton, and he was kind of really, the word around BC was man, this guy just abandons the run game for us and tends to just pass the ball. He's found this guy, Justin Rankin, and the saying that goes around the coaching world or just the football fan world is keep pounding the rock, and that thing's going to break. And that's, as you said, Brian, right? Like they were pretty dormant for a lot of the game, and they kept, feeding and relying on Justin Rankin, and eventually he popped one because the defense is going to wear down, break down, and all he needs is just one run, right? If he's able to hit one or two, that's going to open up other stuff for the receiving core, especially because I think the receiving core, you could argue, is probably one of the less talented ones across the board, is going to help them even more. For me, Bryce, I think what did it in terms of like BC Ottawa, I think Ottawa has the reputation of just being terrible. They haven't shown really different. As much as I don't have much pushback on the BC looking like the worst team last week, maybe that does show a little bit of our homerism why we put BC ahead of them. For me, I thought Ottawa kind of clawing back into the game, or the 4 interceptions from Ottawa, showed much more about Mike Miller and his maybe lack of coaching experience in terms of like being up big in a game, not handing the ball off, not really going to your run game to try to put that thing away. He really tried to stat pad with Chad Kelly after he already had 400 yards. They had like 5 touchdowns, when it's like you don't really need to keep passing the ball. You could continue to lean in the run game. So that's personally for me. I thought Ottawa kind of got into it because Toronto wanted to put up more points and kind of let them back into the game. And for me, Toronto is the team that is like kind of like, man, they're playing with some house money after last year, how it went. Some of that core that's kind of within there. I know obviously Dinwiddie's gone, but some championship caliber core in there with, some of the guys on defense, Chad Kelly at the helm at quarterback, their offensive line. I think getting a guy like Dakota Shepley in the offseason, an NFL caliber offensive lineman to come in, sure up your offensive lineman along with some of the other guys in there. And Kevin Mitel, I have to give him a shout out, man, as a young Canadian receiver. That's just absolutely a budding star. I think he had just under 200 yards, I believe, and 2 touchdowns. So
did he get hurt?
I did see he got banged up, but I believe he was okay. I thought I saw him on the field come back in again, but I could have been mistaken.
The Argos are that team that like wins the Grey Cup, takes a year off, and then comes back and wins the Grey Cup again. It's just like, it's just uncanny how many times it's happened. But one thing to mention about Ottawa too is what happened this week with Drew Brown. I don't get that move. I'm sorry, but Mayer is not your guy. I understand he asked for a trade. But
I think
to jettison Drew Brown and bring in McLeod Bethel Thompson, I don't see how that makes them a better football team, because Mayer, I don't think, is the answer in Ottawa.
Well, I heard rumblings that it was because Drew Brown didn't play quarterback the way Ryan Dinwiddie wants his quarterbacks to play quarterback. Like his style just and again, this is where I gotta wonder if this thing is a dumpster fire in Ottawa. Like, I mean, a complete utter dumpster fire.
Burn it to the ground.
Burn it to the ground. Like take the studs out, everything. Like, we're going beyond just, hey, rip down the studs. We are burning it till it's smoldering on the ground, and then slowly try and piece this back together. Because my question here is the question I think people should be asking, I should say, is how good of a coach is Ryan Dinwiddie?
He's already made some questionable decisions, right? Like, you go out and you make Greg Bell one of the highest paid running backs in the league. You don't even dress him for the first game. Second game, whatever. But like, and then this Drew Brown, the Drew Brown decision coming out of training camp was a weird one to me, especially when Brown went into that second exhibition game and threw a couple touchdown passes.
Played well.
Played pretty well, and Mayer's been struggling, and you don't even throw him in there to kind of see if he can right the ship, and then he ends up getting traded. So I mean Dinwiddie is a good coach, I think, but like, you got to question some of the decisions he's making there, and he's running the whole show there, right? GM, coach, everything. So he's got a lot on his plate, and they went out and signed a ton of free agents. So far, it's not working out for them. So we'll see what happens going forward. Okay, let's get to our picks. All right, Bryce is starting to pull away a little bit, 7-3. My damn Stampeders lost again in overtime, so that was I was surprised at how ineffective the Stampeders were in that game coming off a bye week. I expected them to come out gunning and play a lot better, but they got behind the 8 ball early in this and couldn't make up for it. But I've got Winnipeg Saskatchewan, Calgary, and Montreal this week. Winnipeg, coming off a bye week, is unbeatable the last few years. Mike O'Shea knows how to get his team rested. He knows how to get them prepared. He's had 2 weeks to prepare for the Elks, and I'm taking the Bombers at home coming off the bye.
All right, well, I've got Edmonton because I think they're going to run Rankin, and I think that's going to cause some problems for that pass rush that they do have in Winnipeg. It eliminates it quite a bit, and I think Fajardo's good enough to get the ball to Mac and some of these weapons. And I think, you know what, one thing we didn't talk about, I think Edmonton's defense is playing some good football right now. Like coverage-wise in the back end, I think they've got some interesting young players that are developing quite nicely. I'm the one guy here that took Toronto. I think Toronto hands Saskatchewan their first loss of the year. I think Chad Kelly, given what BC was able to do in that week 1 game, I think Chad Kelly, with the weapons that he's got at his disposal, I think they've got an opportunity to maybe go in there and upset the Rough Riders. I'm taking Calgary. I'm just got a feeling this isn't going to get right for the Lions just yet. And then I got Montreal because I just think Ottawa's a dumpster fire.
Montreal's at home, and they're not going to lose 2 in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bryce, I don't hate your Toronto pick. That was a tough game for me, to be honest, as I just talked about with Argos and really liking what they've been on the field. I think for me, the difference is just that this is the game that should be in Toronto, and opposed to it's in Saskatchewan.
Toronto home game.
I don't think it's going to be anything close to that. I think Saskatchewan will be able to benefit from that, maybe cause Chad to throw a turnover or two or cause a turnover. So I think it's going to be a very close game and likely come down to just maybe who has the ball last. So I don't hate that pick at all. I think, as you said, with Justin Rankin and being able to control the ball a little bit, we've seen, at least through 2 games, the very maybe highs that Winnipeg can have with Serezna, Willie J, but then also the lows of maybe just being a more veteran team. Like those guys are old. Serezna maybe a little bit younger than a guy like Willie Jefferson, but they get goose egg the next week, right? They weren't even close to, I believe it was Vernon Adams. So I think Justin Rankin will be able to keep them ahead of the chains and Cody Fajardo in that offense in a good position. And then I think they've kind of seen that, moving on from a guy like Niles Morgan, giving the keys to Nick Anderson in the middle of the defense has definitely been helpful for them. And their defense, I think they've taken some steps forward after, I believe it was last year, they kind of really transitioned to like a younger side of the group. They went through their growing pains and now maybe are starting to reap some of those benefits. And to the homer on the show, for me, as much as it is a homer pick, I won't deny that. I would say I disagree a little bit with Ryan's point to the receiving core in Calgary. And I think that's what gives me a little bit more hope in terms of BC being able to stay in this game, number one, and keep everything in front of them with their secondary. Now, this is very scary because their secondary has proven to be absolutely all-time garbage. But to me, like, as high as I am watching Jalen Philpott play throughout his career, high school up into university pros, hasn't been able to stay healthy, isn't healthy right now, on the injury report already.
It's just an illness, though. I think he'll be fine. Okay.
To my Tevin Jones as kind of their boundary X wide receiver, probably towards 7 to 9 in terms across the league. Visan Janesis right now, kind of their younger second, third Canadian. Deshaun Brissett, like Vernon Adams' ability to extend the plays is what scares me more so than their receivers and being able to win right away. So if you can kind of allow yourself to play over the top, not allow some of those deep shots, not allow some of the basically like just the quarterback get the ball and just chuck it deep, essentially, where it doesn't allow your pass rush to get any pressure. If they get anywhere near Vernon Adams, they have to bring him down, because if they extend the play, I have zero confidence in the secondary being able to hold. But I think with some of the additions, Fitzgerald, Mayala, the offense will be able to do just enough. But call me a homer if you want. I will take the Lions, and hopefully come Wednesday next week, I'll have one more game closer to Bryce. But Montreal, I think, is Montreal. They're going to probably roll over Ottawa, I would think.
The thing about Vernon Adams, too, is like he's a great quarterback. But passing-wise, he's not Bo Levi Mitchell. He is prone to make that mistake. So maybe that's the trigger for us. Maybe Vernon Adams throws up a pick, gets this defense going, gives them some confidence. If you can pressure Vernon Adams, that's when he starts to make some mistakes. But great quarterback. If he's on and we can't do anything about it, we're in for a long day.
But to your point, if he's off, which to every Lions fan's memory,
6 picks in that one game in
Toronto. Not even just that. I think every Lions fan's biggest fear during that time, or at least mine, and I made it very known on the show, is like, Vernon Adams is great for the first 9 weeks, first whatever it is. When the moments get big, he tends to really not play his best. And to be going back into Kelowna, to be going back into BC, as much as I'm sure he'll probably be moved on from this sort of thing, I could see him being a little bit, kind of fired up for this one, wanting to prove that, hey, they moved off from me, like, kind of thing, right? And who knows, that could go one of two ways, where he absolutely lights the world on fire, and we've seen that many times, where he's throwing the ball around the yard and really feeling himself, celebrating with his teammates, all that stuff. We've seen the good, but we've also seen the bad, as Brian said. So
I think like every quarterback in the league, he's looking at this one coming up and saying, this is the week where I get my game going, because there's some big opportunities to do some big things in the passing game this week.
When I look at Vernon Adams, guys, the one quarterback I always think back to, just comparison, and he hasn't won an MVP, but I just see so much similarity in the inconsistency of Casey Printers. That's who I see. Like, when Casey was here, that's the one thing I remember about Casey. Like, he was phenomenal, could run, could do all these things, could throw the ball like crazy. But there were those moments where it was like, oh, Casey, why did you throw that ball? Especially on his second stint, and then he went to Hamilton. Like, there were just those moments with him where it's like, he's so exciting and he can do all those things, but then, damn, why did you do that? Like, don't make that mistake. And so that's where, for me, it's always been the thing. And I go with Cole on this. I loved it, but you just knew that eventually it was going to happen. It was almost a foregone conclusion that was going to happen.
Bryce, I don't think I've met you in person, so maybe I shouldn't speak for you. But speaking for a small quarterback as well, I think at times that's, unfortunately, that goes against VA too at times, right? Because maybe he can't see some of those lanes. I think some of the times too, right? Good, bad, or otherwise, he tends to put a lot of trust in his receivers, where he puts up some of those 50-50 balls. We saw it with actually the Tevin Jones touchdown late in the game last week, where he scrambled, he evades the rush, able to spin out of the pass rush, evade them. And it was basically Tevin Jones and the DB at the back of the end zone. He gave his guy a 50-50 ball, put it up. His receiver won that 50-50 battle. So as the saying goes, 50-50, hopefully that 50% goes in our way more often than the other way.
The other thing with VA is sometimes he doesn't know when to go down. And we saw it a couple times with the Lions when, he ended up on the one game or the 2 or, missed 2 or 3 games because he's got that wonky knee. So he's got to be careful in that respect too, because when things get a little tough, he tends to want to try and do a little bit extra, and that's when he gets himself into a little bit of injury trouble as well. And we're not hoping for any injuries for VA, so don't think that's what I'm kind of saying here, but it's just one of the traits that he's had over the years. Okay, guys, I think we've probably covered this. Let's open it up to questions now and comments in the chat if you've got any before we head out. Let's get those in now. We're coming up, we just passed an hour and a half on the show. So if you've got any questions or comments, VA can be so hot and cold. Yes, indeed. Rankin is scary in space. Probably the scariest guy in space in the CFL. With Rankin, it's just amazing. Like, sometimes you see, like, he doesn't even get blocks. It's just like he just misses, the tackler misses him because he makes one little small move and he's gone. Like, it's just amazing that guy can evade so many tackles. That's why he's so dangerous.
Who did they just play? Who did Edmonton just play?
Montreal.
He put a move on, to Brian's point. He put a move on somebody last week.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, because you don't expect how agile he is, and then he's by the defender, and it's like, my God, this guy is talented.
He's got a little bit with how he moves in space sometimes reminds me a little bit of pinball, where he's like, he makes to Brian's point, one subtle move, and then bang, he's gone. It's like you don't get another opportunity at him until 15, 20 yards down the field when your safety catches up to him or can cut him off. But this is where he's such a weapon, because linebackers can't keep up with him. And if linebackers in Canadian can't keep up with your running back, you just keep feeding that guy the ball out in space and let him go to work.
Yeah, and we talked about in our group chat this week about like it's a shame that some of these guys, they just kind of, the NFL window of a guy like Justin Rankin, who's, doesn't, it's not a question of that does he have the talent. It just comes down to opportunity. When you look at how many running backs come out of the draft every year, how many star running backs there is in the NFL, and there's not a ton of like two back options for him to get, some reps, to get a little bit of burn in the NFL or during a preseason game to show what he has. So to me, and then you look at age factor as well as a bummer for Justin.
Yeah, that's what I said in our group chat this week. It's just amazing to me that he's never even had like an NFL look. Maybe he has, I'm not sure. I can't recall him going down for an NFL look. But running backs are dime a dozen down in the States. So many of them down there, and a lot of them get drafted right out of college. So it's probably a little tougher for running backs. But you see some of the guys that go down there and they're not nearly as talented as Justin Rankin, and some of them actually stick, right? And so it's unfortunate for him, because I think he definitely could have played in the NFL if he was in the right situation and the right age. But
the other guy that's kind of interesting is Montreal's running back to me. I think his name's, is it Thies?
Thies.
Yeah. Dice, whatever. He reminds me so much of the guy that played. I swear I put it in our group chat too. I just can't remember his name, but I'm blanking on it. War number 44 for the Argos, early when Ricky Ray was there.
Chad Cackert.
That's who it is. Thank you. He reminds me so much of Chad Cackert, the way he just runs in between the tackles, can catch the ball out of the backfield, all those different things. He reminds me so much of his skill set and the way he moves out on the field. It's kind of uncanny.
Yeah, speaking of running backs, we would be remiss if we didn't congratulate the Diesel, Sean Millington, for getting into the Canadian Hall of Fame. Man, that guy was a load, and it's about time he got into the Hall. I've been pushing for Ryan Phillips for a while, but Sean Millington was a guy that kind of went under my radar. But congratulations to him, well deserved. That guy was a beast when he played for the Lions.
Him and Drummond in the same backfield. My gosh, that was
thunder and lightning, they called it.
Yeah, and then you had freaking Damon on the boot. Like that was what made that group so special. That 2000 team was like, you could legitimately run up in I formation in Canadian and be like, "Okay, stop us. Good luck."
Yeah, here Bob makes a good point. He's still jacked. I don't know if you guys saw the video, and he took it. I think Cole's frozen. I'm not sure what's going on with him, but he hasn't changed his facial expression in quite a while.
I was very intrigued by our discussion on the Diesel right now.
Yeah, but I don't know if you saw the video, but players all made him take off his shirt, and Jesus, this guy's jacked. He looked like he could still play today.
Oh yeah, like he looked like he could still suit up and be a running back for the Lions right now. It was one thing that was brought up earlier in the comments, Brian, that I think is kind of interesting is, they try this two-headed monster attack with Horvath and well, they haven't really tried it, I don't think, to what we've seen. I would like to see Bailey get an opportunity somehow. Like, get him involved, because he might be enough of a spark, because he's quicker than any of the other backs you have on your roster, and get him in space.
That's a tough conversation to have, though, because
I know
you got to take Butler out or Horvath out.
Yep.
And I don't know if you take out Horvath because of what he brings on short yardage. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of looking at James Butler saying, we're gonna see how this goes and give Amani a shot. But let's see how it goes
before.
Yeah, let's see how it goes this week. And let's also be clear that Nathan Rourke is a huge proponent of James Butler in a blocking capacity. So Manny Bailey is probably not going to be that blocker that Nathan likes to have in front of him. But if Butler gets nicked, as Bob says here, Bailey gets his shot, and I think that's probably what it's going to take based on the things I just mentioned. But okay, guys, we're just going to promo this one last thing here again. The Shout It from the Rooftop Challenge for CFL Fans Fight Cancer. Please head over to the website, CFLFansFightCancer.com. All the details are there. But if you make a donation to CFL Fans Fight Cancer, find a rooftop or a safe elevated location, record your video yelling "Shout It from the Rooftop" and tag CFL Fans Fight Cancer, and then challenge some other people to do the same. And you will receive a tax donation of a $25 donation as well. But yeah, this is a great initiative from CFL Fans Fight Cancer. The Calgary Organizing Committee is killing it this year. It was announced this week that the Toronto Argonauts will be giving up to $10 per ticket sold in certain sections directly to CFL Fans Fight Cancer this year. Stamps are on board as well. They're offering up some money from ticket sales. I'm going to try and get the Lions to see if they'll jump on board, but we'll see how that goes. But this is the first year that we really had any participation from teams in the Canadian Football League, and we've been trying for years to get them on board and the league on board. But the Calgary folks have made some great strides this year, and this is just another one of their great initiatives. And speaking of charities, I think I retweeted it, but Baron Miles' daughter is going through a real tough time right now, and the CFL community is coming together to help fund her medical treatments in the States, which is a massive undertaking. So if anybody has the wherewithal, I'll try and post it again on Twitter. But Baron Miles was a longtime Lion, Alouette Lions coach. I think he's still coaching this year. I'm not sure what the condition of his daughter, but I think he's somewhere. But if you guys can help out, there's a GoFundMe for that. And Wally Bono's tweeted about it. I've tweeted about it. The Lions have tweeted about it. So the link is out there. Go check that out if you can, because his daughter's quite sick and needs the care. So as we say that, I think we're going to wrap things up. It's been over an hour and a half for the show. I hope you guys, I hope everybody enjoyed the show tonight. Our thanks to Brian Ballantine for stopping by. Always great to chat with him. And hope to see you folks in Kelowna. If you see a guy walking around wearing this hat, that would be me or Cole, because hopefully, or Bryce, because if I see them in Kelowna, they're getting their hats. And so come on out and come up, say hi, introduce yourself, and maybe we'll see you in a bar somewhere, pre-game, post-game, and we can chat Lions up there as well. So hope everybody that's going enjoys themselves, travel up there safely and get home safely. Should be a great week, but let's hope we get that Lions win. On behalf of Bryce Coots and Cole McGarvey, thank you so much for joining us, and always, as always, roar you Lions, roar.